Most heart attacks don't happen in the morning. They happen between 1000 p.m. and 3 o'clock a.m. while you're sleeping, and the reason has nothing to do with what you ate for dinner. There is a 30-second mistake that millions of Americans over 60 make every single night before they close their eyes, and it is silently multiplying their heart attack risk by the time the sun comes up. Your doctor probably hasn't mentioned it, and the reason why will make you furious, but stay with me because what I'm about to share could be the most important thing you hear this year. Stay with me until the end because the number one habit I'm going to reveal today is so powerful that one large-scale study found it reduces cardiovascular events during sleep by up to 67%. 67%, and yet almost nobody over 60 is doing it correctly. That's the difference between waking up refreshed and not waking up at all. I'm Dr. Michael Carter, a physician specialized in senior health with over 15 years of dedicated clinical experience. I've sat across from thousands of men and women over 60 who came to me terrified after a nighttime episode, a racing heart, chest tightness, a cold sweat in the middle of the night that left them shaking. What I'm about to share goes against everything most people assume about nighttime heart health. The pharmaceutical industry profits when you manage symptoms. I profit when you actually get better. So I refuse to stay silent any longer. Here is what most people don't realize. Your heart does not rest when you sleep. It actually goes through its most vulnerable window between 1000 p.m. and 3 o'clock a.m. During this period, blood pressure drops and then surges. The nervous system shifts, inflammatory processes accelerate. And if you've made certain habits part of your nightly routine, you are essentially pouring gasoline on a fire that your cardiovascular system is desperately trying to put out. After 60, your heart's electrical system becomes measurably less forgiving. Your arteries have lost some of their youthful elasticity. Your autonomic nervous system, which controls your heart rate during sleep, responds more slowly to changes. This means that the same habits that a 40-year-old might get away with will trigger serious events in someone over 60. Research published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that cardiovascular mortality risk is 44% higher during sleep in adults over 65 compared to those under 50. That is not a small difference, that is nearly half again the risk. And most of it is driven by completely preventable bedtime behavior. And here's what terrifies me most. The people most at risk are not the ones who look sick. They are the ones who feel fine during the day. They go to their checkups. Their numbers are reasonable and they go home thinking they are doing okay. But at night, their habits are quietly loading the gun. Tonight, we are going to unload it. If you're finding this valuable already, hit that like button right now because what comes next might genuinely save your life. We are going to go through 7 dangerous nighttime habits ranked from bad to catastrophic. By the end, you will know exactly what to stop, what to start, and how to protect your heart during the most dangerous hours of the day. Habit number 7. Eating a heavy meal within 2 hours of bedtime. This one surprises people because they think digestion is a quiet process. It is not. When you eat a large meal close to bed, your digestive system demands a massive increase in blood flow. Your body redirects circulation away from the heart and toward the gut. At the same time, blood sugar spikes, then crashes, insulin floods your system. For a healthy 30-year-old, this is manageable. For a 65-year-old with any degree of arterial stiffness or blood sugar irregularity, this metabolic roller coaster during sleep is genuinely dangerous. A study published in the European Heart Journal found that eating within 90 minutes of sleep was associated with a 28% increase in nocturnal cardiac events in adults over 60. The mechanism is straightforward. The body cannot efficiently handle a large glucose load while simultaneously trying to shift into the restorative low-demand state it needs for sleep. The heart ends up working significantly harder during the first 2 hours of sleep, which is precisely when it should be working less. The fix here is simple, but requires commitment. Finish your last substantial meal at least 2 to 3 hours before you plan to sleep. If you're hungry closer to bedtime, a small snack of protein and healthy fat, like a handful of walnuts or a small piece of cheese, will not trigger the same insulin surge. What you want to avoid is anything high in refined carbohydrates, pasta, bread, sweets, or anything fried. Your heart will thank you by morning. Here's something most people miss. It's not just the size of the meal, it's the composition. A medium-sized meal heavy in simple carbohydrates does more overnight cardiac damage than a slightly larger meal built around protein, fiber, and healthy fat. The glycemic response is the real enemy, not the volume alone. Now, let's move to habit number 6, sleeping with the room too warm. This sounds like a comfort issue. It is actually a cardiovascular issue. Your body's core temperature needs to drop by approximately 1 to 2 F to initiate and maintain deep sleep. When you sleep in a warm room above 68 to 70 F, your body struggles to achieve this thermal drop. The result is fragmented sleep, repeated microaerosols you may not even remember, and a nervous system that never fully shifts into parasympathetic heart protective mode. Research published in Frontiers in Aging found that adults who slept in rooms above 72 degrees Fahrenheit had measurably higher nighttime heart rates and blood pressure compared to those sleeping in cooler environments. Over time, chronically elevated nighttime heart rate is one of the strongest predictors of cardiovascular events in adults over 60. The ideal sleep temperature is between 65 and 68 F. Many people resist this because it feels cold at first, but your cardiovascular system is asking for it. If you cannot control your room temperature, a simple fan directed at your body can approximate the cooling effect. The goal is to help your body do what it is designed to do: cool down, slow down, and protect the heart. Habit number 5, using your phone or watching television right up until the moment you fall asleep. I hear this from almost every patient over 60, and almost none of them realize the cardiac implications. Blue light from screen suppresses melatonin production. But this is not just about sleep quality. Melatonin is a potent antioxidant with direct cardiovascular protective effects. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that melatonin reduces oxidative stress in arterial walls, decreases nighttime blood pressure, and supports the natural dip in heart rate that should occur during deep sleep. When you suppress melatonin with screen exposure in the hour before bed, you are not just making it harder to fall asleep. You are stripping your heart of one of its most important nighttime defenders. In adults over 60, where melatonin production is already 40 to 50% lower than it was at age 30, this suppression hits harder and lasts longer. The recommendation is clear: no screens for at least 45 minutes before sleep. If you watch television in the evening, finish at least 45 minutes before you actually intend to close your eyes. Replace that time with reading, light stretching, conversation, prayer, or anything that does not involve a glowing display. This one habit change alone has measurably improved nighttime cardiac markers in my patients within 2 weeks. Before we continue, I'm curious. How old are you? In your 60s, 70 seconds, maybe beyond. If you check your phone in bed before falling asleep, type phone in the comments below. Let's see how many of us share this habit. Habit number 4, taking certain common medications or supplements at the wrong time of night. This one is more nuanced, but it is critically important. Many adults over 60 take blood pressure medications, antihistamines, sleep aids, or even common supplements like magnesium, melatonin, or fish oil. What most people do not know is that the timing of these substances has a dramatic effect on nighttime cardiovascular function. For example, certain blood pressure medications taken at night can cause an excessive dip in blood pressure during deep sleep, a phenomenon called nocturnal hypotension. This excessive dip is associated with reduced blood flow to the heart muscle itself, and in people with any degree of coronary artery narrowing, it can trigger a silent cardiac event. A major study published in the European Journal of Heart Failure followed over 19,000 adults and found that bedtime dosing of some antihypertensives nearly doubled the risk of nighttime cardiovascular events in a subset of patients over 65. On the flip side, some medications are actually better taken at night because the body processes them more efficiently during sleep. The key is that you should never self-adjust the timing of any prescribed medication without consulting your physician. But you absolutely should have that conversation. Ask your doctor specifically, is there a timing recommendation for this medication based on my age and cardiovascular risk? Supplements are a different story. Fish oil taken at night has been shown to reduce nighttime triglyceride levels and support heart rhythm stability during sleep. Magnesium glycinate taken 30 minutes before bed can reduce arterial tension and support the nervous system shift your heart needs to slow down safely. These are generally beneficial evening additions for most adults over 60. But again, discuss with your physician first. I want to share a story with you. I remember Patricia, a 71-year-old retired school teacher from Boston. She came to me after her third nighttime episode of chest tightness in a single month. She was frightened, and honestly, so was I. When I reviewed her chart, her daytime readings were acceptable. Her nighttime monitoring told a completely different story. When we went through her evening routine together, I discovered she was taking her blood pressure medication at 900 p.m. as she had done for years and then taking an over-the-counter antihistamine. For allergies at roughly 1000 p.m., the combination was creating excessive blood pressure drops between midnight and 2 o'clock a.m. right when her heart needed consistent pressure to peruse properly. We shifted her medication timing with her cardiologist's guidance and eliminated the nighttime antihistamine in favor of a morning dose. I suggested she add magnesium glycinate at bedtime and put a small fan in her bedroom. 3 weeks later, she came back to my office with something I hadn't seen on her face in months. Relief, she told me, "Doctor, I haven't had a single nighttime episode. I actually feel safe going to sleep now. I didn't realize how frightened I had become of my own bed." That is not a small thing. Fear of sleep is a profound quality of life issue for many adults over 60 with cardiovascular concerns, and in Patricia's case, the solution was not a new medication. It was timing and awareness. Her body was finally getting what it needed. If you believe that nighttime habits can directly affect your heart health, type yes in the comments right now. If you're still skeptical, type 0. Your response helps other viewers know they're not alone in asking these questions. Habit number 3. Sleeping in a position that compromises circulation. The position you sleep in has a more direct effect on your heart than most people realize. And for adults over 60, this is particularly true. Sleeping flat on your back with no elevation is the default position for many seniors, but for those with any degree of sleep apnea, acid reflux, or venous insufficiency, flat back sleeping significantly increases cardiac workload during the night. Sleep apnea is the most alarming factor here. An estimated 40–50% of adults over 65 have some degree of obstructive sleep apnea and a large proportion are undiagnosed. Each apnea event where breathing briefly stops triggers a microsurge of adrenaline, a spike in blood pressure, and a sudden demand on the heart. Research published in the New England Journal of Medicine found that untreated sleep apnea increases the risk of serious cardiac events during sleep by up to 58% in adults over 60, elevating the head of your bed by 4 to 6 inches or sleeping in a slightly reclined position reduces apnea events, improves venous return, and eases the workload on the heart significantly. Side sleeping, particularly on the left side, has also been associated with reduced cardiac strain during sleep due to improved venous return to the heart. If you snore heavily, if your partner has ever noticed you stopping breathing during sleep, or if you wake up feeling unrefreshed despite adequate hours of sleep, please speak with your physician about a sleep study. This is not a comfort issue. This is a cardiac safety issue. ACPAP machine is not glamorous, but it is one of the most powerful cardiovascular interventions available to adults over 60. Here's something most people miss even without apnea. Elevating your head slightly during sleep has been shown to reduce nocturnal blood pressure by an average of 8 to 10 points systolic in adults with mild hypertension, that is clinically significant and requires no medication whatsoever. Now let's move to something that I find even more dangerous and more preventable. Habit number 2, going to bed dehydrated. This may be the most underestimated cardiac risk factor I encounter in my practice. Here is the mechanism: blood viscosity. How thick your blood is increases significantly with even mild dehydration. When blood becomes thicker, the heart has to work harder to pump it. Clot formation risk increases. The likelihood of a blood vessel becoming occluded goes up substantially. During sleep, when you are not drinking and your body continues to lose fluid through respiration and minor sweating, dehydration deepens. A study published in the Nutrients Journal found that adults who were even mildly dehydrated at bedtime, not severely dehydrated, just mildly, had measurably higher blood viscosity, elevated nighttime heart rate, and significantly increased platelet aggregation during sleep. Platelet aggregation is the process by which clots begin to form in an artery already narrowed by decades of plaque. This increased aggregation during the dehydrated overnight period is one of the primary mechanisms behind 2 o'clock a.m. and 3 o'clock a.m. cardiac events. After 60, your thirst mechanism becomes less reliable. You can be genuinely dehydrated without feeling thirsty. This is well-established science, and it means you cannot use thirst as your guide. You need a deliberate hydration protocol that ensures you are entering sleep in a well-hydrated state. The recommendation I give my patients is to drink 12 to 16 ounces of water in the 2 hours before bed, finishing the last of it about 45 minutes before sleep. This is enough to ensure adequate hydration without causing disruptive nighttime bathroom trips in most people. I also recommend avoiding alcohol in the 3 hours before bed because alcohol is a diuretic that actively dehydrates you during sleep while simultaneously suppressing the deep restorative sleep stages your heart depends on. I think of William, a 74-year-old retired engineer from Chicago. He came to me 3 years ago after a nighttime cardiac event that thankfully was caught early. He had no major blockages. His daytime health markers were reasonable. His cardiologist was puzzled. When I did a detailed evening habits review with him, the picture became clear. William, like many men his age, deliberately avoided drinking after 5 p.m. to prevent nighttime trips to the bathroom. He was going to bed consistently and significantly dehydrated every single night. I suggested a hydration protocol. 12 ounces of water at dinner, 8 ounces 2 hours before bed, finished 45 minutes before sleep. We also addressed a separate nighttime urination issue with some dietary adjustments that made the water intake manageable. 8 weeks later, William came back. His nighttime monitoring showed a significant reduction in heart rate variability disruptions. He told me I had no idea I was doing this to myself every night. It sounds so simple. I just wasn't drinking enough. How did nobody tell me this? That question stays with me. How did nobody tell him? That is why I make these videos, because the simple things are the ones that save lives and they are the ones most often overlooked. Before we continue, if you're finding this information helpful and you want to keep receiving this kind of straight-shooting senior health content, I'm asking for 2 things right now. First, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Second, share this video with someone you love, a parent, a sibling, a friend over 60. A single share could genuinely prevent a tragedy. Please don't keep this to yourself. And now we have arrived at the #1 most dangerous nighttime habit for heart health after 60. This is the one that concerns me most deeply. This is the 30-second on bedtime mistake I mentioned at the very beginning. Habit number 1. Ignoring or improperly managing blood pressure in the evening hours. Here is the specific 30-second mistake. Millions of Americans over 60 check their blood pressure during the day, see a normal or near-normal reading, and go to bed feeling reassured. But they never check their blood pressure in the evening, 1 to 2 hours before sleep, and this is the window that matters most. There is a well-documented phenomenon called the non-dipper pattern. In a healthy cardiovascular system, blood pressure naturally dips by 10 to 20% during sleep. This overnight dip is protective. It gives the arterial walls a period of reduced pressure stress. It allows the heart muscle itself to rest more fully. But in approximately 30 to 40% of adults over 60, this dip does not happen. Blood pressure remains elevated throughout the night, or in some cases actually rises during sleep, a pattern called reverse dipping or nocturnal hypertension. Research published in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that non-dippers and reverse dippers had a 79% higher risk of stroke and a 61% higher risk of cardiac events compared to normal dippers regardless of daytime blood pressure readings. This means your daytime numbers can look completely normal while your nighttime pattern is silently destroying your cardiovascular system. The 30-second on mistake is not taking 30 seconds to check a single blood pressure reading 1 to 2 hours before bed. 2 to 3 nights per week is enough to detect whether you have a problematic evening pressure pattern. That is all it takes. 30 seconds with a home blood pressure monitor that costs less than $30 at any pharmacy. If your evening reading is consistently 10 or more points higher than your typical afternoon reading, that is a red flag that warrants a conversation with your physician. If your evening reading is consistently 15 or more points higher, that is an urgent conversation. If you do not own a home blood pressure monitor and you are over 60, please get one this week. It is the single most cost-effective cardiac monitoring tool available to you. There are also specific evening habits that directly drive this non-dipper pattern. Sodium consumed late in the day, even moderate sodium in an evening meal, can maintain vascular constriction through the night in sodium-sensitive individuals, which represents the majority of adults over 65. Stress or emotionally stimulating content in the hour before bed, arguments, upsetting news, stressful phone calls. These activate the sympathetic nervous system in ways that can sustain elevated blood pressure for 2 to 3 hours after the stimulus ends. Alcohol, which many people believe relaxes the cardiovascular system, actually disrupts sleep architecture and is strongly associated with the non-dipper pattern and nocturnal hypertension in adults over 60. I remember Linda, a 68-year-old retired nurse from Atlanta. She knew more about health than most of my patients. She ate well, exercised regularly, and took her prescribed medications exactly as directed. She came to me after her physician expressed concern about a TIA, a transient ischemic attack that she had experienced. During sleep, her daytime blood pressure was consistently excellent. She was, by all conventional measures, managing her cardiovascular health well. When I asked her about her evening routine, she described what millions of people do. She watched the evening news. She had a glass of wine most nights to unwind. She checked her work email one last time around 9:30 p.m. and she never checked her blood pressure in the evening because her daytime numbers were fine. We got her a 24-hour ambulatory blood pressure monitor, and what it showed was alarming. Her blood pressure spiked significantly every evening after the news, remained elevated through her wine and email window, and never achieved a normal nighttime dip. She was a textbook reverse dipper and no one had ever looked for it because her daytime readings were normal. We restructured her entire evening. News consumption moved to midday. Wine was eliminated completely from evenings. Email ended at 7:00 p.m. We added a specific breathing protocol before bed. 5 slow breaths in through the nose, extended exhale through the mouth, repeated for 4 minutes. This technique called resonance frequency breathing has been shown in clinical trials to reduce systolic blood pressure by an average of 12 to 15 points within 20 minutes. 6 weeks later, her ambulatory monitor told a completely different story. A healthy dipping pattern had emerged. Her neurologist was genuinely surprised. Linda told me, "I was a nurse for 38 years. I thought I knew everything about blood pressure. I had no idea my evenings were doing this to me." She was not broken. Her evening information was broken. Now let me tell you exactly how to implement everything we have covered tonight. Start tomorrow evening with 3 foundational changes. First, check your blood pressure 1 to 2 hours before your intended bedtime. Write it down. Do this for the next 7 nights. You are building a picture. Second, finish eating at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. No exceptions for 1 full week. Third, put your phone down 45 minutes before sleep. Set a timer if you need to. In week 2, add the hydration protocol, 12 to 16 ounces of water between dinner and 45 minutes before bed. Eliminate alcohol within 3 hours of sleep. Adjust your room temperature to between 65 and 68 if possible. In week 3, address your sleeping position. If you snore or wake unrefreshed, speak with your doctor about a sleep evaluation. Elevate your head slightly if you are currently sleeping completely flat by the end of 30 days. If you implement these habits consistently, research and clinical experience suggests you will see meaningful improvements in your morning energy, your morning blood pressure readings, and how refreshed you feel after sleep. Many of my patients report their morning numbers improving by 8 to 15 points, systolic, within 4 weeks of evening habit changes alone. Do not make these critical errors. First, do not check your blood pressure once and assume the reading is representative. Variability is normal. You need a pattern, which means at least 3 evenings of readings before drawing conclusions. Second, do not eliminate all nighttime hydration because you are afraid of bathroom trips. Dehydration is the greater cardiac risk. Address the source of the frequency issue rather than the water intake. Third, do not assume that because you feel fine at bedtime, your heart is fine during sleep. The nighttime cardiac window is silent. That is precisely why it is dangerous. Your body wants to protect its heart during sleep. It has every mechanism in place to do so. It simply needs you to stop working against it for 30 days. That is the challenge. I am giving you tonight 30 days of deliberate evening habits. That is all. So let us recap what we covered. 7 nighttime habits ranked from dangerous to most dangerous. Heavy late meals that spike blood sugar and force your heart to work harder during sleep. Warm bedroom temperatures that prevent the thermal drop your heart needs. Screen exposure before bed that strips your heart of melatonin's protective effects. Medication and supplement timing errors that can cause dangerous blood pressure drops or surges during sleep. Sleep position problems, particularly undetected sleep apnea that trigger adrenaline surges throughout the night. Dehydration at bedtime that thickens the blood and dramatically increases clot risk during the most vulnerable overnight hours. And at number 1, the 30-second on mistake of never checking evening blood pressure, leaving the non-dipper pattern completely undetected while it silently builds cardiovascular risk night after night. Each of these habits has its own mechanism, its own pathway of harm. But here's what I want you to understand. You have complete control over all 7, every single one. these are not genetic destiny. These are choices, and you can begin making different ones tonight. My main message is not fear. It is power, because now you know what most people over 60 do not know. You know that the nighttime hours are not passive. You know that your heart is working hard while you sleep, and you know exactly what to do to protect it. Age does not stop your heart from healing. It simply requires you to take the nighttime hours as seriously as you take the daytime ones. If this video helped you, please smash that like button. Clears throat. Subscribe to this channel if you want to keep receiving real, practical, science-backed health information designed specifically for adults over 60, and share this video with someone you care about. Think about the people in your life who have ever mentioned chest tightness at night, morning blood pressure spikes, or simply not sleeping well. A single share from you tonight could change the entire trajectory of their health. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 habits will you address first? Will it be the evening blood pressure check? The hydration protocol? Getting the screens out of your bedroom? Share your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and I truly want to know your story. Because remember, aging does not take away your heart's ability to protect itself. It simply reminds you to give it what it needs at night, not just during the day. Take care of yourself.